Good evening. Welcome to our commission meeting, Piqua City Commission meeting, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Let's begin by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's like hearing your own voice.
I think it's what it sounded like, yes. All right. May I have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Homan.
Present.
Commissioner Simmons.
He asked to be excused. His wife is not doing well, and I need a motion to excuse him.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
He is excused.
Commissioner DeBras.
Here.
Mayor Lee.
I'm here.
Commissioner Vetter.
Here.
All right. Next, we'll just do a presentation, a monthly report from the Commissioners Committee on Fire Training Facility.
Evening. I'm going to make a statement, and then David's going to make a statement. Most everyone knows by now that the city of Piqua was allowing outside private companies to test lithium-ion batteries in the name of firefighters' safety at the old water plant. After 5 to 6 years of this toxic activity, and then an outcry by the citizens, the EPA concluded last fall that the companies were in violation of EPA rules and it had to be shut down. Why did it take so long for the EPA and RAPCA to discover those violations? Who allowed that to happen? Who was in charge? It is the committee's job to figure out how this developed from a firefighting facility to one that tested or burned batteries as big as 40,000 pounds and as big as Connex boxes. We are a committee of 5 appointed by the commissioners back in March of this year. We meet every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the 4th floor of the Piqua Plaza Hotel. The meetings are public and are recorded by the city and posted later on the city's website. We have met 13 times so far and have collected thousands of documents in an effort to research the evolution of this activity. Who were the players involved? What went wrong? What were the motivations for entering into such a dangerous activity? Located in the midst of the city's source water, alongside our bike path, popular fishing holes along the hydraulic canal, across from the dog park, and within the wind's distance of businesses and residences. All of this research will be compiled into a final report with recommendations to the commissioners on how to avoid creating such situations in the future. It is our intent that all of our research will become public documents when we submit our final report. People say we are an independent committee. Nothing could be further from the truth. We could write a whole speech on the obstacles presented to us by the commission and the resolution. We have tried to interview city staff, but are told by the city manager that we are not allowed to do so. We can only submit written questions. We have only been able to conduct in-person interviews with citizens who have volunteered to come before our committee, either for public statements or in private. We are concentrating on collecting facts and documenting those facts into a timetable. You don't have fire protection without trained firefighters. No one is against firefighter training. Even the testing of lithium-ion batteries and their components could be acknowledged to be necessary and important. The location of the burning in Piqua seems to be the major concern. The location has been described by private companies as being ideal for their purposes, but the location definitely was not ideal for the community. Questions abound about what materials were burned at that site. Questions abound about the testing that was done at the site and what mitigation efforts should be employed to satisfy the community about the safety of the site. Questions still abound as to the original thinking of this enterprise. We are told that Piqua did not make money off this situation. The company certainly did. Questions abound, and we are still doing our research.
Good evening. My name is David Roth, co-chair of the Fire Committee. I wish I had better news to bring to all of you. But quite frankly, the last month has been a bit disappointing and discouraging for the committee. Dan Brown, the attorney that was recommended to the commission by the committee to assist us with this investigation, has withdrawn. Mr. Brown was not ever hired. A lot of the committee time and effort was lost on retaining him so we could move forward with our investigation. I'd like to talk a little bit about the events, or just a recap of the last month, to kind of highlight the efforts and challenges that the committee has faced to make this happen. So if we go back to June 20th, after searching for an attorney, the committee initiated contact with Mr. Dan Brown of the Brown Law Office in Dayton, Ohio. The committee expressed to him the challenges that we were facing with interview requests in the Ohio open meeting and sunshine laws. And he expressed a willingness to help us in our efforts. So fast forward to July 11th, the committee unanimously voted to recommend the hiring of Mr. Brown to represent and assist us in our investigation. On July 14th, the committee notified the city commissioners and city manager of the committee's request to hire Dan Brown, and that request was made via email. On July 15th, the committee was told to supply the city with Mr. Brown's scope of qualifications. This was a requirement under the city's procurement policy, and on the same day, the requested resume and practice profile of Mr. Brown were submitted back to the city by the committee. On July 16th, the committee presented this request of hiring Mr. Brown to the city commission at the city commission meeting, along with Mr. Brown's hourly rate and the information, his practice profile and resume. The commissioners agreed that Mr. Brown was a well-qualified candidate that would be beneficial to the committee's efforts. And it was stated at the meeting that the city would handle setting up the contract with Mr. Brown's office. Fast forward to July 31st, I worked with Mr. Brown to draft a statement of work, which was another required document that we were asked to submit. So we submitted our official statement of work to the city. The statement of work required a detailed breakdown of each hour of Mr. Brown's time. We requested 15 hours for various reasons of Mr. Brown's time. And the city began its efforts to add Mr. Brown as a vendor. And then on August 2nd, the committee was informed by the city that Mr. Brown does not have a budget item to cover the cost of Mr. Brown's services. So as a result, an agenda item would have to be added to the next commission meeting. The plan was to add this as an item made on the meeting floor on August 14th. On August 19th, the committee was told by Mr. Jerry O'Brien that the engagement letter would be signed by the city manager that day, August 19th, for Mr. Brown. No reappropriation of funds was necessary. The committee was excited to have this finished finally and start working with Mr. Brown. Then the next day, August 20th, the committee was told not to proceed because the city law director needed to contact Mr. Brown to discuss items on the statement of work, which was submitted to the city July 31st. We were told that the city would reach out to Mr. Brown. On August 29th, Mr. Brown, after unsuccessfully trying to connect with Mr. Patrizio, decided to withdraw from the engagement, stating that he was not a good fit for our needs, as he was more of an environmental attorney. That's what his email said, and he wished us luck. Now, I have other emails from Mr. Brown saying that he's waiting patiently. I mean, this was I have an email on July 26th saying that he was discouraged, and those are his words. And he's got other stuff going on, other matters that he needs to attend to, but he waited patiently, and so that's kind of where things are. Obviously, that was really discouraging for us as a committee. Hiring an attorney was a primary objective for us over the last several months, and much of the committee's focus was on those efforts. The committee put a lot of work into finding Mr. Brown, presenting him to the city, and getting him hired. All of this effort since June 20th feels as though it's been a waste of time. And I don't mean to be blunt, but that's how it feels. At this point, the commission needs to advise us, we believe, on what it recommends that we do next. And I would ask, what are the commissioners' hopes or goals for our committee at this point? Does the commission want us to continue our efforts? Does the commission want us to dissolve? And I only ask these questions because the commission, you as the commissioners, formed this committee. I think it's fair to say that this committee has not felt a great sense of support since we began this process. And it's my personal opinion that this committee has put in its due diligence, and the ball's been kind of dropped by the city. So that's kind of all I had. But we would propose those questions to the city commission, and
We would like to see a timeline, as we asked in our proposal, our ordinance for you. So we would like you to finish,
Okay. I think what's taken so long is we've put all this effort into finding an attorney, and we found one, and that whole process, we feel like we have been kind of stalled, I guess, until we could get an attorney hired. The attorney was mentioned in the resolution that created the committee
Wow.
as, another tool in the toolbox. And, I think we as a committee want to take advantage of every resource that you are willing to give us. That's all I had. I don't know if,
Joe?
So I think it'd be important if you guys understood why we wanted the attorney. We've talked about getting an attorney, so the Bobby's question is, what would we do with this guy or gal? So we put together, as we stated, we like to interview some people who are involved in the events that took place out at the fire training facility. And they're not being very forthcoming, but we'll do our best to try to get information about what happened, so we can understand how we can avoid this from happening in the future is one problem. But the attorney, what we've done is we've put together we're poised to send out letters to these individuals requesting interviews with our committee from all these folks that are involved. And we would like to use the attorney to be a signator on that letter, to give them a peace of mind that there is an impartial person that's going to be there as part of the interview. It's not just 5 citizens who may or may not have a narrative that we want to push forward or try to move forward. So we felt like it'd be kind of an independent voice, A. B, with Frank being legal counsel for the city of Piqua and us being a body created by the city, there's got to be some autonomy someplace. There's got to be an independence, a separation. And this attorney would give us separation from documents that we get that are provided by the city from Frank. Some of them have his name on the document because as attorney, a lot of emails went back and forth and he was CC'd on a lot of stuff. So we need an independent person taking a look at that. David's an attorney, but the rest of us are not legal scholars. So we want to make sure that we have a good voice in the room who can give us guidance. And we feel he would be important in that vein. Lastly, is as we create a report, there are people who were burning out that facility. There are companies that they represent. We're going to have to discuss them, but we sure don't want to be inflammatory or put verbiage in there that is going to defame somebody's reputation or their company. and I want an attorney to look at our final report and say, is that a fact you can put in there? Do you have documentation to support that? If it's not factual, if it's just your opinion, get it out of there. I want to make sure that our final report is without question on the up and up. And I just, those are the reasons why I feel like the attorney would be very beneficial for our committee. Thank you.
You have anything?
I don't have, excuse me, I don't have much to add, but as part of the committee and what's already been stated is I believe that a lawyer would help us in just maintaining that neutrality and unbiased opinion and perspective and advice that they could provide to us. So just from a research perspective, which is where my focus mainly is, my expertise, that's where taking a step back, and how I would run research projects is, like Joe said, we need that kind of independence, even though we are a part of, the commissioners formed us, we're a part of the city, but just bringing in that outside perspective to help break that up a little bit. So we're just looking forward to, your guys' advice. We can put together a timetable, but it would be more robust, and I would feel we would have a stronger report out with that expertise. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may. First off, I want to thank each and every one of you. We ask, and you all answered the call to do this. We knew what we were asking for, and I think we all were in agreement and are still in agreement that this had to be done outside of the commission. Excuse me. So I want to start there with a thank you. I wrote down the timeline as you were reading it off. And as much as it pains me to say this, a lot of this is just dealing with a government. This is a bureaucratic process. But the one question that I have is between August and August 29th, did Mr. Brown and Mr. Patrizio actually speak?
August 20th?
And 29th, yes.
So I can answer some of that. Is Mr. Brown and I exchanged telephone calls. I'm looking through my cell phone now, and I believe the first one was sometime around the 25th or 26th, and he called me back. I missed his call. I called him back. He missed my call. He called me back. He didn't call me back for a couple days, and then he called me back, and he explained to me at that time that he no longer wanted to represent the committee. He felt that and the reasons that he told me when I talked to him, he left me a voicemail and then I talked to him in person. The reason why he said he did not want to represent them is because he said he was an environmental lawyer and he felt a lot of the questions they had to do more with administrative questions that involve municipal law. It's my understanding he referred 3 attorneys to them, 2 or 3. I don't know who they are, but I have no objections to that.
Were there referrals made by Mr. Brown of attorneys that would be more?
Correct. Yeah, Mr. Brown provided 3 attorneys that we could reach out to. But the last email that we received from Mr. Brown said that he had unsuccessfully tried to reach out to Mr. Patrizio. So I don't know if Mr. Brown emailed us first and then talked to
They
Frank
connected.
or, yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously, your statement and ask for an attorney, obviously, we're all in agreement. We all supported it. We wrote it in the statute allowing you all to do it. So the answer is still yes. I do believe in order for you all to proceed to the next steps that needs to happen. I don't know who the 3 that were referred, or if you know any of them, if they're local attorneys. I don't know, right? First I'm hearing of this. Obviously, I will try to be as helpful as I possibly can to you in this. It's probably not going to be with any conversations with the attorney, right? Then you lose that independence. But if it's trying to expedite this process, the next time one is identified to get them onboarded, now that we know, right, all of the steps that are are coming in place. As soon as we identify that, we get that individual all of these things and get it done and squared away. Back to your other question or ask of what next. To me, the answer is simple, and it's the first ask, right? Of to the best of you all's ability, how did we get here? How did we go from what we were told it was to what it morphed into? And I understand that some of those questions we're not going to be able to answer because the people who were here are no longer here. And there's nothing we can really do to compel them to talk to us if they're not going to willingly offer that. But for those individuals who are here, and who do have some information and documents that we've received, to help us put it together with the assistance of outside counsel, to help couple together, the factual timeline of what happened. And more importantly for me, as someone who's coming in after all of this took place, what do we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Right? What are some of those procedural things that we can institute as commissioners to put in place to make sure nothing like this can happen again, right? Are there things that, had we had this process in place when this thing was starting to take shape, that would have been a check and balance on top of it, right? I mean, we all know it went before the planning commission approved it, and then there's some question as to whether it actually came in front of the commission or not. As one of 5 voices up here, that would be my answer to your question. And I want to circle back to the very first thing I said, which is thank you. As you know, I've not been to your meetings. I have tried to not meddle in your affairs because I truly do believe that it does need to have that sense of independence. But on the other hand, as much as we want that or try to accomplish this is a city-created entity, right? You're never going to be able to get fully outside of that scope. And this is new. It's my understanding that, and Mr. Patrizio can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time we've done anything like this. So there are going to be some bumps in the road and some hiccups, but as long as you all are heading towards that goal and that mission that we put forth in the agenda of working towards that timeline, let me know how I can help.
We would like to continue to help. So there are 3, I guess, you were referred to 3 attorneys.
Correct.
You guys get together and we'll expedite it as quick as we can.
I have a suggestion on that. Do you guys, based on your discussions with Dan, do you feel like those 3 recommendations were pretty good, unbiased recommendations?
I know a couple of the firms. I would say that they're
Pretty good.
good recommendations.
Given that pool of applicants came from what you guys think is an unbiased source, I would maybe think we should just direct Mr. Patrizio to go through, vet all 3 of them, and just pick one and get it done.
See, I would think that with Mr. Brown, we did ask that we have the autonomy to
Exactly.
choose
That's why I want you guys to
our
pick.
attorney.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying like cut you guys out of the process, but
Yeah,
just
I'd rather you guys
having you
pick.
guys looped into that process seems to. It took 2 months to
All you
get
gotta do is
here.
say which one you
so
want,
I'm trying
we'll
to.
expedite it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it looped quicker, I guess, is the idea. So I guess maybe direct Mr. Patrizio to put a veto
Whatever
list.
they pick.
If there's some reason to veto them, explain that. But beyond that,
I think what we'd like from Mr. Patrizio is the statement of work that he made changes to that may or may not fly with Dan Brown, may or may not fly with the next lawyer.
I think that was one of the questions, was the statement of work that was submitted on July 31st. Maybe there were a couple tweaks that needed to be made to that.
He can answer.
So if we
I
could-
don't have any problem supplying that information at all.
yeah, could we maybe the stumbling blocks that and the parts that took a long time over the last 2 months, maybe jumpstart that this time, give them a statement of work that they can then send to the 3.
The statement of work that they had with Mr. Brown was fine, after we made the tweaks to it, and the only thing we were doing was trying to get back and forth with him, so I can supply what we made, or the tweaks we made to it, give it to them. I have no
And
objections
then they
to
can,
that.
you guys can
They
pick
can
from the
proceed.
three.
Once they find an attorney, he should contact me, and we should discuss
Gonna
the,
send that to you, ma'am. He just said that, so.
So we'll
get that
use
to you.
as you were saying, we'll use the statement of work that we get, and
Yes.
we'll use that as kind of the template for well,
We haven't seen the tweets.
we'll see the document that we get.
Thank you.
We'll review it. If we have any questions, we'll reach out to Mr. Patrizio and the commissioners if necessary. But hopefully, when we get the statement of work back after it's tweaked, it should be a good template for, a new firm or a new attorney.
Sure.
And we'll do our best to expedite our recommendation to all of you.
You did last time, so.
Could you also
Thank you.
help by freeing up city employees to be open to interviews?
If they want to be interviewed, they're welcome to be interviewed. I can't order them. We have no control over city employees. The charter form of government that we are, we cannot. So, but I would like, if they would want to give you the information or any information that they have, which is relevant, I would hope that they would. So I don't have a problem. And I myself, I've not gone to your meeting because I think you guys need to be autonomous as well. And I'm waiting to see what you find out. So I thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week proclamation. They were sent a copy, and just let you know that we are doing that, and we made a proclamation for them. They did not want it read out. Now we are on to the regular Piqua City Commission meeting, and before I do that, I'm going to read the procedural rules, and this is going to take a minute, but the procedural rules for the business, rules of conduct for the city commission meeting. Since we're doing this in the new format, you need to know how it's to go about. For the business agenda, which is where we're at now, commission meeting shall be called to order by the mayor or presiding officer of the meeting. The clerk shall call the roll of the commissioners. The mayor, presiding officer, shall thereafter lead the commission in the Pledge of Allegiance. Upon roll call being completed, the business meeting of the commission shall commence. The commission shall, if necessary, add or remove items to the business agenda and approve the agenda once it's established. After approval of the agenda, the commission shall vote on approval of the minutes of the prior meetings. After the establishment of the agenda, the commission shall permit public comment by the citizens of Piqua as required by Section 4 of the Piqua Charter on any approved agenda item. Any person providing public comment shall provide his or her name and street address prior to making any comments. Any non-citizen may also participate in public comment if an ordinance or resolution made part of the agenda affects his or her business located within the city of Piqua or the utility service they receive within the city of Piqua. Any non-citizen shall state his or her name and either what business he or she operates that is being affected by an ordinance, resolution, or what property address inside the city limits that he or she is receiving utility service. Any person providing public comment may speak once for up to a total of 5 minutes on each resolution and ordinance made part of the agenda. No person shall be permitted to comment twice on an agenda item. Once public comment is completed, the commission shall immediately begin debate and deliberate on each agenda item. No public comment from the public shall be permitted during the debate and or deliberation of ordinance and resolution by the commission. After deliberation on ordinances and resolution, votes on ordinances shall be recorded by roll call, and votes on resolutions may be recorded by voice vote. If a commissioner wishes to have a roll call vote on a resolution, any commissioner may request the clerk to call the roll to record the vote. The clerk of commission shall record the vote tally for each ordinance and resolution. During the business agenda, only city employees, including department heads and guests of department heads, to discuss matters affecting the city. Piqua Chamber Director, Main Street Piqua Director may make presentations during the business agenda part of the meeting. At the completion of the business agenda, the mayor may or may not permit commissioners to address the community for the good of the city. Afterwards, the commissioners shall call the business meeting of the commission to a close, and the city staff may be excused. For non-agenda public comment sessions may, upon the discretion of the commission, commence after the regular business meeting of the commission adjourns. Any non-agenda public comment shall not begin after 9 p.m. and shall not continue after 9 p.m. Comments by the public shall be addressed to the commission and mayor and shall be limited to a 5-minute period per person. Under no circumstances should the commission or mayor interrupt any person's 5-minute time period unless the individual violates the rules of conduct or the individual commenting requests interactive dialogue. Interactive dialogue shall not extend the 5-minute period. No person may speak more than one time during any non-agenda public session. All comments shall be related to the city business or activities. The clerk of the commission shall not be under any obligation to keep minutes of the non-agenda public comment session. Public comment shall be only afforded to persons who live within the city of Piqua, city limits, own property within the city, or own a business within the city limits. Any person providing public comment shall provide his or her name or street address prior to making any public comment. And that's how we're going to proceed. There are rules of conduct. They should be on the back table. But we are going to begin with the consent motion to approve the business agenda.
I'd move to approve the business agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And the consent agenda.
Approval of the minutes from the August 20th, 2024 Piqua City Commission meeting and resolution number R105-24, a resolution of appreciation for the public service of Rick R. Beasley as a city employee, and he is here.
He is here. I see him. Can't miss him. Hey, Rick, come on down. What a good man. I had the pleasure of working with Rick. How many years we worked together? 16 years or so? All right. This is a resolution of appreciation for the public service of Rick R. Beasley, a city employee. Whereas Rick R. Beasley is retired as a police officer with the city of Piqua, and whereas his retirement follows 25 years of faithful and dedicated service to the city and its citizens. That's a long time. You did a great job. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Commission of the City of Piqua, Miami County, Ohio, all members elected thereto concurring that in recognition of and appreciation of the public service of Rick R. Beasley with the City of Piqua, this commission tenders its unanimous and respectful tribute by this resolution. Take care, Rick. I'm going to tell stories about you. I do have some good stories about Rick, but I'll save those for later. He was great to work with. He was great to work with. It's just, he was fun to work with. If a situation got worse, it always got worse. So he's a great man, though.
Would you like a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Thought we did that.
I don't think we have.
Nope. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda then.
So moved.
And I second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. On the new business, ordinance number 015-24, first reading.
An ordinance to make appropriations for the city of Piqua, Ohio for the year 2024.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This ordinance adjusts appropriations for some items not known at the time that we set the original budget. So in Section 1, this is an increase for $65,000, and this is in the Finance Department. $20,000 of this is to purchase a financial reporting system to do our annual financial report. Right now, we're just using a hodgepodge of Excel spreadsheets and Word files, which is very cumbersome, and this system would put all of that into a computer program and would update that process, make it much more efficient and much safer as far as accidentally encountering errors that are typical that can happen in Excel spreadsheets. The other $45,000 is so we're currently trying to fill a position, an accountant position in the department, and we're experiencing some challenges to that. There is a shortage of accountants, and especially in government accounting, so it's difficult sometimes to fill these positions. So right now, we're looking to fill that temporarily with a temp agency hire until we are able to fill that permanently. Section 2, this is an increase of $60,000 to the street fund. And this was for extra repairs and patches to the streets that were unanticipated. When we set the budget, these have been extra repairs that have come up. So in order to continue being able to repair on into the summer and fall, we're asking for an increase in appropriations there. And then the last one is in the IT department, and this is an increase of $30,000 to do a major upgrade to our accounting system. Now, this is different from the program that I mentioned in Section 1. This is our actual accounting system that we use to do transactions, write the checks and record receipts and so forth for the city. So we haven't had my understanding is we've had minor upgrades, but never a major upgrade, and we're well past due for that. To update that system to bring it up to current standards and to make it safe, because right now we're at a little bit of a risk of losing data if the system crashes. So that's what that increase is for. And I would take questions.
I don't have any specific questions right now, but I did have a few when I read through this earlier. And I just wanted to thank you for walking me through all that and making sure all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed on that. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, so how is this, one is Springbrook, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the accounting system that the city uses.
That is correct.
Okay, and the other one is an upgrade, you said, for year-end transactions for the auditing?
Well, yeah, so the software for the reporting system in Section 1, so what happens is information reports are run out of Springbrook and then entered into various Excel spreadsheets, and then there are a lot of calculations and manipulation of that data into report format to produce our financial report. This software would, rather than enter that information into Excel, we would take the information out of Springbrook at year end, put it into this software, and be able to compile the report with that.
Okay.
So, and this is our annual report. The name is Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR, and then that's what the auditors audit.
Okay. You have a question?
Yeah. Is this a one-time purchase? Once we purchase this, do we now own rights to the software and can use it for the future years?
This would be a subscription-based purchase, so in next year's budget, there would be a subscription price for that, and each year after that.
Is the subscription 20,000, or is that just an onboarding
For an
fee?
update.
This is about, this is for the onboarding this year, the implementation cost. The implementation cost, I don't have exact figures for that because I haven't chose the vendor yet, and I would bring that contract, once I've selected the vendor, then I can bring that back to commission for a contract, because we might be looking, at a multi-year contract that would, and that would require review by commission.
Do you have any guess as to what a subscription might look like next year?
Probably somewhere between 20 and 25,000 a year.
All right, we have questions from the public. Darren Yeekst. He did? Okay. Jeff Grimes? No question? Okay. All right. Any other debate from commissioners? It's a first reading.
I believe there's an audience member who didn't put a thing in that wanted to talk.
Yeah, I just read the two that had something.
I think there's somebody who didn't put one in.
Who?
Kim, did you want to come up and ask a question? Yeah, I mean, that's the rules, is once the list is exhausted,
Yep.
anybody else can come up, so. Oh, did you fill one out? Did you get lost?
She did, but it doesn't have business agenda number 1 on there, so, okay.
It's,
Ordinance.
she put number 3.
Oh, for
That's
3?
the item number,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Kim.
It's a work in progress. We'll have to
Yeah.
fine
well, I'm
tune
trying to
that a little bit.
understand.
So I had a question on this. Does this, like the software that was approved before, the ClearGov stuff, this is not a
This
part
not.
of, like a module that's purchased that coincides with that? This is something completely different?
It is completely different. The ClearGov is for putting together the budget, the annual budget. This software would be for compiling the annual financial report, which is different.
Is there anything that ClearGov provides to make it more seamless, where they're talking together so that you can not have to re-enter that information and just pull from other
Springbrook's
areas?
not
or-
very friendly with other, it's not.
Well, no, but I'm saying
Saying that software doesn't talk
right, and
to
that's why
other-
they're trying to, I understand spreadsheets are not very friendly.
Well, actually, the data is somewhat different. So the data for the budget would be for the budget. The data for the financial report would be actual expenditures, would be accruals, payables, receivables, and so forth. So it's completely different. Now, ClearGov does have a module for that, which I was thinking about looking at as part of the vetting process. Like I said, I still have some, I'm in the process of looking at different vendors right now, so.
I would just think that it would probably have a very similar style and feel, so it wouldn't be that,
Well, it's a completely different process, though.
okay. Well, just a thought.
Actually, the financial report is probably much more complex than putting the budget together.
Okay, and then on section 3, the $30,000 for the accounting system upgrade, is that also going to be a different software, or that's going to be part of ClearGov?
No, this is part of Springbrook, which is our accounting system. And we've had this system for, I think, since 2011, I believe.
So you're upgrading Springbrook to a modified Springbrook?
Yes, it will actually go from, right now, one of the changes is going from a hosted server to a cloud-based application. I mean, they've made a lot of changes over the years. They've made improvements. They've improved the reporting. It's kind of a cumbersome system, and across the city, we would all welcome, the changes that we would give with a new system, or, an upgrade like this, because we're talking about several years of development on Springbrook's part. So we are expecting a lot better, more efficient
Is this
accounting with
also
that
a
system.
subscription type thing where it's going to be a yearly fee?
Yeah, it'd be a subscription-based purchase.
Okay. Like, is there any kind of limit or anything for, are you guys able to allocate like all those monies coming for all this different software? Are you able to do that, or
Well, most
is
of
there a
this,
limit or a cap to software or anything?
pardon,
Is there a limit or a cap
what do you mean is,
to how much you can spend on software upgrades and stuff like that?
Yeah, the city manager's only authorized to sign contracts up to a certain amount before he has to come to us. It's been tradition that they have been coming to us, even if it doesn't meet that cap. There's a secondary boundary of just how much funds were allocated in the budgeting process at the beginning of the year. So when we pass the budget, if there's just not funds available for some kind of tangent project, then that's another barrier to being able to accomplish that. If you're asking about overspending, those would be the two barriers I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, I know when you guys were looking at ClearGov or whatever, there was like there was monies that was allocated for this year, and then there was like a full amount, it was like 102,000. That's not going to be a part of this, right?
okay, yeah, so I see what you're saying or asking. So, yeah, so the money that I'm asking for tonight would be just for this year, and then I would bring forth the contracts for the software program, even the change in the Springbrook contract, and we could bring that forth. So, yeah, so we would see the multi-year contract for the software. So it would be kind of like ClearGov. We would see the full amount of, say it's a 3-year contract, then you'd be able to see the full 3-year contract amount. And then commission, could approve or disapprove.
It would just be nice to have it all integrated, so it had all this, I know it's all different stuff.
Well, I haven't. Well, the reason I brought it forth tonight like this was I wanted to get the appropriations started because that'll take 6 weeks to get through all the readings.
This is just the
And once
first
I select a
reading.
vendor, that can come through on one resolution. It'll still all be approved by commission.
All right,
So, but
thank
we
you.
need to get that process started so that we can get the implementation started this year. And then, so that we'll be able to, ready to go at the beginning of the year or soon thereafter on the 24 report.
So to kind of respond back to your question about like why don't we just have one master program that does everything? Yeah, budgeting, daily transactions, and then the financial compliance reporting. It's all got to do with money and numbers. And why can't we just have one big system that does it all? And that would be great because then you'd have consistency in the application and the training and the interface. That would be nice. What going through and having different software for each little piece of it is what's known as a best of breed approach, where you pick out software that's really good at a particular set of tasks rather than holistically good at all the tasks. A software package that's good at all the tasks might be much, much more expensive than getting 3 individual little pieces. It might not be as good at any one particular thing. I know when I go to the store, I see the shave cream, shampoo, and body wash, and you're wondering it's probably not doing all of those things at the optimal level because it's trying to do everything at once. So getting each individual piece, that would help us do better at each of those tasks rather than going for one holistic thing. Now, something like ClearGov, that looks like it's something that maybe in the future they would add modules or change their model a little bit. That might be something where we could expand out into having everything under one roof. But that's just not the way the state of things is right now. So we're looking at doing best of breed for each individual situation.
And to add to that, if I can, so ClearGov is, and they have developed a program for financial reporting, but they're just rolling it out. So we're looking at a new product. So I probably will look at their product, but I would be a little leery of being the guinea pig on a new product versus if we can vet some systems that have been in use for a while and find out the pros and cons, might be the best.
Okay. Any other comment from commissioners on this? We will consider this a first reading. Next on our agenda is ordinance number O-16-24, first reading.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of a not to exceed $5,800,000 of notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of construction, acquisition, and equipping of park improvements, facilities, and all appurtenances relating thereto, refunding outstanding notes issued in anticipation of such bonds and paying for the related cost of issuance thereof and declaring an emergency.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This ordinance is related to an ordinance that the commission passed last year, wherein there was $5.8 million borrowed from the wastewater fund by the Lock 9 fund to do that project. And the intent is to pay back the wastewater fund that $5.8 million loan. So this, and it was taken out in a one-year note with the idea that at some point we may issue bonds for that. But what we want to do for now is roll that note over into another one-year note and pay that money back out of the Lock 9 fund rather than issue bonds. So we're going to try to pay as much back internally without issuing bonds as possible, and we'll look at budgeting that over the next few years to get that done. But however, this year we need to pass this ordinance to roll over the note into another one-year note, and the intent is to pay down $2 million in principal back to the wastewater fund, along with $226,000 of interest. And then it will be in another one-year note with a principal outstanding of $3.8 million.
And this pay down comes from grant money that was received, that's come in.
Yeah, that is correct. There was grant money received into the fund, and we still have some grant money to receive. And then, so that's where a lot of the payback money is coming from. We won't be able to pay back the whole amount out of the Lock 9 fund, but quite a bit of it.
Just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, because there was a lot of words there, a lot of numbers. But I think the general idea of what's happening is we borrowed $5.8 million from ourselves, and we're paying back $2 million of that. So we still have a $3.8 million outstanding balance that we have to pay back to ourselves.
And $226,000 in interest.
Yes.
Correct. That is correct.
So the $2 million that's getting paid back, that eventually, that ultimately came from grants. Where do we anticipate the other $3.8 million coming from? And I'm asking that knowing that you weren't here when they passed that, and I wasn't here when they passed that, and a few of my fellow commissioners weren't here when that got passed. So where is that $3.8 million supposed to come from when we see this again next year?
Like I said, there won't be enough grant money. We're probably, and I don't have an exact figure on this. We're still looking at, it's still in progress, so we're still looking at the exact dollar amount. Probably around $600,000 or $700,000 more grants to be received. But I would say the rest of the money, if we pay that back, either way we pay it back, it would come out of the general fund.
So the total cost of Lock 9 probably won't exceed, well, it's projected right now at 5.8, but there might be some carryover for last minute things. Is that correct?
You mean last minute expenditures?
Yes.
I think it's going to be very close to that from what I've seen. The figures that I have were not over that.
Okay.
Unless there's something at this point that I'm unaware of.
I guess I would just ask, just as part of kind of our regular update meetings with you and the city manager, is just maybe in the next 6 months, I guess, as you kind of get your feet under you of what does a full year of Piqua accounting look like? I guess strategizing where you think how many years it's going to take to pay that off, where we would pull that money from, what some of the priorities are, and the benefits or risks to keeping that open like that, so that we know what we're doing next when we get to this again next year.
Okay, sure will. And we need to also include this in our budget anyway, so we will be looking at that, and projecting that out and seeing exactly how much each year we could pay back. So yes, I will get that information for you.
Thank you very much.
And I would add to that, Jerry, that that I appreciate your willingness to sit down with me and look at the budget for the first 6 months of the year. And we've talked about instituting a quarterly review process for commissioners who are interested in that. And I think this discussion fits right into that same discussion.
I agree.
So again, I would think the end of September, we would get a report from Jan 1 through September 30, and that would give us a springboard to be talking about where we are with the budget and some other related issues that are accounting issues. And I have admitted very clearly that accounting was not my major in college, and I appreciate the help of going through that and kind of answering questions for me. Yeah.
All right.
I just wanted to add a general comment about the original use of these funds in bolstering the Lock 9 project, and what a fantastic addition to the city that's been over the last few months since it's been opened. Every single time I go down there, it is just packed with families. Their kids are there, they're playing, they're having fun. It's exactly what the city needed, and it's what the families in the city wanted. It's what a lot of the local small businesses wanted to help bootstrap downtown, and it's doing exactly what it needs to do. So while we do have to do all of the less fun work of accounting for all of that, the benefits to the city are very clear in the increase into the standard of living and the benefit and enjoyment that people have in their city.
Good point. All right, public comment from
Mayor.
Jeff. Oh, you want to comment?
Jerry, I just have one question for you.
Yeah.
The very last statement in this ordinance on the agenda says, "and declaring an emergency." Can you elaborate, please?
Yes, I will. So the due date on the note is September 26th, so we have to do the payback to the wastewater fund before that date. So with this ordinance, by declaring an emergency, that puts it into effect as soon as the commission approves it. Now, we'll still be able to do the 3 readings, which the second would be on the 9th, and then the third reading on the 17th. And if the commission approves it on the 17th with this emergency clause in there, then it will become law that immediately upon passage, and then we'll be able to do the journal entry the next day and get that done before the due date. That would keep us within the time frame of the ordinance. Even though this is paying back ourselves, this is still was an official debt issuance, and so we still have to follow those protocols, to the letter. So,
And the if it goes through the 3 reading rule and we don't pass until the 17th, that works for your schedule, and that we're not going to miss any payments or anything, or nothing.
10-day rule or anything?
correct.
Because of the emergency,
As
yeah.
long as on the 17th, if we pass it, if we say, pass as emergency and waive the 10 days, time lapse between, normally it would be 10 days from the time it's passed until it becomes law. But if we pass it as an emergency on the 17th, then we'll be good to go in finance.
And to clarify, Mayor, we have a special meeting on the 9th on
Yep,
Monday.
we do.
Okay. I have no further
All
comments.
right. Jeff Grimes?
Jeff Grimes, 1512 Margine. Just trying to get a wrap on what this reading is. So, thank you for asking about declaring the emergency. And so why would we not sell bonds in this case?
Why would we not?
Why,
I'm sorry.
why would we not issue bonds?
Well, one thing, as much of this as we can pay back ourselves, so for instance, the upcoming payment, we'll pay back principal, and then we'll pay back $226,000 of interest, which accrued on the note for this year, but we're actually paying back ourselves, so the cash actually never leaves the city. Once we issue bonds, then we'll be paying investors. So we want to try to pay this down as much as we can internally. I mean, at some point, if we have to issue bonds because that looks like the best move, then we just have to do that. But that'll be a discussion, when we, for that day. But for right now, the best option is to pay down as much as we can internally. That'll save us the interest cost.
So then, this is only, it says for the equipping of park improvements facilities, so that's only for Lock 9, no other parks?
That is correct.
Okay. And then, if we're borrowing money from a grant and then taking it out of the water and sewer, where does the $226,000 interest go? Does that go back into the water department?
Back into the sewer fund, yes. The fund that we borrowed the money from.
So then, I'm just not figuring out, how much money did we get in grant money to begin with?
There was around 2 million. Like I said, I don't have the exact figure on that with me. But we're getting that. We're going through all the grants and seeing what was actually awarded and what we've got in so far.
And are there any other grants applied for, and how much money was that?
That's pretty much it.
That's it?
Yeah, I believe it was around 2 million. Now, there was also 500,000, another grant that was related to Lock 9 for operations. That was not toward the construction. That was intended toward the operations of the park and was posted into the park fund. But just to note that it was related to the Lock 9. It was because of that we have the Lock 9 park.
Okay, so we got about 2 million in grants, and we've got about 6 million in cost. And then how will we pay that back if we don't get any more grants to the water and sewer fund?
Well, either we would, like I said, we either issue bonds at some point, or we continue to pay it back ourselves internally to the sewer fund, but ultimately the money is going to come from the general.
So it's all going to come from taxpayer money, except for about 2 million in grants, which is taxpayer money. So just trying to figure out what is, what's going to be the exact amount that we do have in Lock 9. And
5.8 right now.
5.8.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments from Commissioner? Oh, no. Kim. Keep forgetting you, Kim. There we go.
I don't need to say my name and address since you
Yes,
have
you
it
do.
right. Okay.
I'm sorry.
New rules, okay. Kim Eisler, 1802 West Parkway Drive. All this stuff is really kind of new to me, in mentioning notes and bonds and stuff like that. But try to help me understand, because it's not very clear to me. On this ordinance, if you look at section 9, and I guess I'll ask the question, that's the only question I have. Okay, so, and thanks for asking about the declaring an emergency, because that was important. I had that also. But number 9 says, during the year or years, while such note runs, there shall be levied on all taxable property in said city, in addition to all other taxes, a direct tax annually, not less than which would have been levied if bonds had been issued, therefore without the prior issue of said note. Can you guys explain that to me as what that means? Because to me, looking at that, sounds like if you guys can't pay it back internally, we're going to get it on our taxes.
I would love for Jerry, if you could explain that too, but my understanding of that is that that is probably boilerplate, which says that the city has to pay back its debt. So if at first it can't pay them out of the general fund, then it must go to bonds. And if then it can't pay it out of the bonds, the city then must tax the citizen. So the citizen would then be the lender of third resort, essentially, if we were for some reason to blow through those other two sources of cash. Now, that doesn't sound great or desirable, but it would be boilerplate language to any debt that we incur, that whoever's securing that debt would understand that the taxpayer is then the ultimate backer of whatever the city has borrowed.
Which then would have to come on the ballot then, if it did have to come to us?
That's a great question.
Frank, Not here.
And let me ask another question, though, too. Is bond, what you're talking about, bond, is that different than like a school bond or?
A note would be like you go to the bank and you get a car loan. And so we basically got a loan from ourselves. Now, we went through a process where that turned into a note so that that value of that loan still exists in the account for water and sewer. A bond is something where we would be selling a bond onto the open market that would be bought by investors and shareholders and people of that nature. And they would then, that cash that they used to pay for it would then come into us and we would pay them back slowly over time.
Okay, so different.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Other questions? I did.
Have you exhausted the list?
I exhausted the list. Did you want to ask something? Yeah, don't worry about it. You did not. You only filled it out for the last ordinance.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Darren Yink, 604 West Green Street. Do we actually know what the total cost is going to be for sure on the
We don't have the
final
last
bill?
figures in yet.
Okay.
I mean,
So we
that's
actually
just
have to
in.
pay this, we need to have this paid before we actually know what the final bill is going to be. Am I correct?
I'm sorry,
You're going to have your paperwork done and have the note paid on with interest and a principal payment before you actually going to know all the figures for the final.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we agreed to do, we did this on a one-year note, and it's, actually, the note is called a bond anticipation note, which means it's issued in anticipation of issuing bonds, which we may or may not do. We can roll this over several years.
Yeah.
But no, we have to go ahead and pay the debt service, even though we don't know the total cost. Well, I mean, we know pretty close, but to get an exact figure, we don't have to finish the project entirely before we start to pay that debt.
Okay, but I guess my question is, what do we do? Where does the money come from to pay that final phase? If we're taking the $2 million grant money and putting it on the principal, where will that money come from? Because it looks like then we're going to have to dip into something else to pay whatever that bill is.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So the money, so we borrowed the money, so the cash, the 5.8 million was put into the Lock 9 fund, and that money was there, the cash was there to be used to do this construction, which the construction is a little bit less than that, even for what's paid out of the Lock 9 fund, so it's going to be close to that. But then the grant money is you could view as extra money. We got that money issued to help with this project as well, but we also had the cash from the debt proceeds also.
Okay. And then my next question would be, why are we only renewing it for a year?
Pardon?
Why are we only renewing it for a year? You could go up to 19 years, and if you went ahead, you could pay it off early, but why not just go ahead and set it up for a 19-year payment plan, paying the interest, and you'd be paying roughly $300,000 on the principal every year, unless you made extra payments on it. You have good years where you can make extra payments on it and knock it down. Why not just go ahead and set it up instead of having to keep coming back and forth and saying, now we need, we're going to need this much for it. We don't have all of it. Let's go ahead and renew it for another year. And I understand borrowing it from ourselves and paying ourselves the interest, which is fantastic, because if anybody's going to make the money, it might as well be Piqua, the taxpayers, So why not just go ahead and set it up that way?
Well, that's
Is there a disadvantage to it?
That's one of the main reasons right now, rather than issue the bonds for the next 20 years. This year, we had the ability to pay that down, pretty good, a sizable amount. So
Yeah.
we naturally want to do that. So the procedure is to roll that over into a one-year note. So the bond anticipation notes are done 1 year at a time. Once we issue bonds, then we're stuck with paying that interest
No, I'm
for
not
however
talking
many
about
years that are
issuing bonds
left.
for it.
Pardon?
I'm not talking about issuing bonds for it. I mean, the utility funds are fantastic. I mean, it's not like the utility funds are hurting for the money back. So why not just go ahead and set it up for 19 years? You can pay it off early if you want, and you're still paying yourself the interest, and just be done with it. And you do the paperwork on it, and
Well, just because of the legal procedures of how bonds and notes work, this is how.
well, it says
the
on
note
here,
works.
it says your notes can go for 19 years.
Yeah, you can keep rolling those over,
So you literally have to roll them over year by year.
yes. And then after 5 years, then you have to look at, there's a little bit different procedure after 5 years on it. But, yeah, we can roll that over many times. And probably what we'll want to do is, like I said, once we figure out how much we can pay, how much we can pay out of, pay back each year,
Yeah.
then we'll look at, okay, what makes sense? Do we roll this over 3, 4, 5 years? We may never issue bonds for this. And if we don't have to do that, then we won't have to pay interest only to ourselves. So if we can keep this as a note, it'll work for us
If you get to
better.
the 5 years and say you still owe $1 million, instead of issuing bonds, are you able to go to another utility fund and pull the money out and pay that
Well-
off and set it up on that one?
We wouldn't have to do that. Like I said, it's a matter of how you calculate how much you pay back each year. I've seen in my work in other places, I've seen notes be rolled 9, 10 years or more.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
As a commissioner, I would prefer that we roll it every year so that I can see it and interact with it every year. If we just run it 19 years into the future, then I guess the next 19 years worth of commissions don't get a say on it.
We're passing the buck.
Yeah, and then as
But
for
saving money.
why does it,
I agree with, I hear what you're saying.
to answer Kim's question earlier about the difference between a note and a bond, the better words that I came up with for is a note is a creditor, whereas a bond goes out to an investor. That's who's backing or getting that money to us. And as for why right now, in the current economic environment, just my personal opinion, it's more desirable to have a note rather than a bond, is because interest rates are higher right now, looking to go lower. And so if we were to issue bonds right now, like say like a 10-year bond, we're going to be paying that high interest rate, 5, 6, 7% for 10 years, when very likely in the next few months, interest rates are going to start dropping and probably continue to drop over the next few years. And while those interest rates have dropped, we're still stuck paying the high one to whoever decided to invest in those bonds. So that makes more sense to keep it as a note and to roll it each year so that we can stay current with dropping interest rates and not get stuck into high interest rate payments that don't serve any purpose.
Any other questions from commission? That'll serve as the first reading. Next on our agenda is resolution number R-106-24.
A resolution authorizing the sale and lease of city-owned real estate.
Good evening, Commission. Chris Schmeezing, Community and Economic Development Director. This item is one that we've been working on for several years now, quite honestly. And unfortunately, whenever there's old canal land involved, there's a number of protocols and processes you have to go through to be able to satisfy the requirements that are applicable to be able to convey or transfer a portion of that land. If you go back about 5, 6 years ago, the city of Piqua was successful in working with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to convince them to issue a governor's deed to the city for the canal land through the city of Piqua corporation limits, so that we in effect had local control of it, as opposed to previously whenever there were private property encroachments on the canal, they had a sublease from the city and we had a master lease with the state, and it was very convoluted. With the governor's deed, it's cleaner. However, you still do have to go through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources to secure their approval. And a lot of that is providing them with the pertinent information to be able to satisfy their interest in terms of what should be the fair market value of the land. Historically, how was it occupied or encroached upon, and does it meet the thresholds that they look at? This particular item is 655 North Main Street, the Randolph McCullough Freedom Struggle Museum. The item before you would allow us to transfer the portion of the property that is a parking lot facility that encroaches into the former Miami-Erie Canal alignment and has since 1945, as best we can discern. And that's just over 1/10 of an acre that we're talking about there. In addition to that, there's a strip of grass that is still canal property from where that line would be up to where the Miami Conservancy property line is for the Riverway. And the property owner to which we're conveying the parking lot land would like to also, quote-unquote, control that area in terms of being able to mow it and maintain it and keep it to his standards. So that portion would be leased annually to that property owner with a provision in there that allows for the lease to be terminated should the public interest necessitate that land, the leased area, be reclaimed. So the city would retain ownership, and the owner would just lease it for $1 a year. The other reason for not transferring that is the fact that there's utilities that occupy that lease area. There's overhead electric, there's underground gas, there's underground water, and I believe there's also some phone or cable in there. So this is the final step in that process. This past May, the survey work was finalized, which gave us everything that we needed to be able to provide the legal descriptions and complete the documents that are required to be able to transfer the property and lease the property as described. And so here we are this evening asking for your consent to authorize moving forward with that conveyance. Happy to answer any questions.
Did the BZA or Planning Commission take a look at this and have any comment on it?
No, traditionally, these kind of items have not went through BZA or Planning Commission. BZA wouldn't have any purview because there's not a variance. So, yeah, but it's an existing condition, land use condition, that we're in effect reducing any non-standard condition that might exist there, i.e. right now it encroaches onto a neighboring property that this property owner doesn't own, it being the parking lot. And so by conveying the portion of the property that the parking lot occupies, it actually resolves a non-standard condition.
Are there other properties that this has been, are there parcels that this has happened to in recent memory that we're kind of basing this model off of?
Yeah. So this first came about after the 08 timeframe. Lenders really tightened up in terms of when folks wanted to transfer or take ownership of properties. The banks were not amenable to there being any sublease or lease arrangements with canal land. And that's when we instigated or started the conversations with ODNR to try to resolve the issue and just put it in a governor's deed. And that took at least 3 years. But once we got there, the initial property that instigated that discussion was the former Edison building along the canal on Water Street. And the Weavers who owned it at the time were wanting to convey it to a new purchaser, and the banks wanted that issue to be resolved. So we were able to, on that particular case, we addressed it as a one-off, meaning we just talked about that parcel, and we were able to get it done in, I think, 12 months, which was still very cumbersome when you're trying to close on a sales transaction. It's a lengthy period of time for a buyer and purchaser to have to wait. So that prompted us to look at, is there a more permanent solution? And that's when we ultimately went forward and got the governor's deed. That's one example. Right across the alley from it, where the old Miami Valley Safety Building is located, it encroaches onto the right-of-way, and when the current owners acquired it, same thing, it had to be resolved. By then, we had the governor's deed, and we were able to do it a little bit more efficiently. There and in most other instances, it's typically just a building encroachment, whereas this one, you've got a building or a parking lot, and you've got utilities, and you've got MCD in the levee, and there's it was more complicated than others. Another example would be the old Vern's Auto Repair Shop. That building encroached into the alley by 1.5 feet, 2 feet. Same thing, to resolve that issue so that there could be a transfer of the property and lending activity on the subject parcel. We were able to facilitate transfer of that encroachment to the property owner so that they could move forward with their project. I'm sure there's a couple others that I'm probably not thinking of right now.
Were you able to determine what a fair market value of that land would be?
What we've been able to do so far is convince ODNR that because the encroachments have existed for decades, it ought to be $1, and they were agreeable to that. Otherwise, in the absence of being able to demonstrate a justification for a $1 transaction, they're simply looking at the auditor's valuation of the lot, and then you would prorate to the square footage that you're transferring.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there's a sale and a lease?
Correct. Two separate portions of the land. Just over a tenth of it would be sold or transferred, and then the lease area is less than a tenth of an acre, and that would be an annual lease arrangement for $1.
So in this one, the sale is this portion?
Yes, the white area that's surrounded by the bold line is the sale portion, and that's what's occupied by the parking lot improvements that have been there since 1945.
Got it. And the lease is the closer to the river?
The crosshatch area that goes up to the bottom of the levee.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would this not be, maybe I'm watching too many YouTube videos, but would this not be covered by some kind of like squatter's rights anyways, where somebody who utilizes government land for a certain number of decades without any kind of discussion about it might just inherit that land? Does this potentially fall under that anyways?
I don't think that would be applicable here, simply because it's state land that we now have the governor's deed on. Maybe there's something on TikTok that could better answer the question. If not
I wouldn't
YouTube.
know about that one.
Well, and there are multiple lawsuits about what happens when the state of Ohio formally dismissed the Miami-Erie Canal, and there have been up and down the canal multiple questions asked about who owns the land, where did the survey go, all kinds of questions about that. It's not a real simple topic.
Yeah, former canal right-of-way and surveys are, add up to very complicated. Whenever you start getting involved with the canal right-of-ways, there's a
And
lot of questions.
Ask the city of Tip City about that one.
Yeah.
Sure will. Jeff Grimes. You're good. Kim Heisler.
Kim Heisler, 1802 West Parkway. I think you guys might have explained it a little bit, but my question was going to be, it's owned by this, is it owned by the city of Piqua, or is it considered canal? You mentioned governor's deed. Is that something completely different under a different umbrella as like city of Piqua land that is no longer usable and you're able to?
So
So-
the Miami-Erie Canal, the former Miami-Erie Canal is controlled by the state of Ohio and managed by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. When you transfer or convey property rights or interest, if I sell my land to you, it's generally a general warranty deed. If the state's selling it under the protocols that they followed for this particular one, it's a governor's deed. So that's the difference. But the governor's deed conveyed the property from the state of Ohio to the city of Piqua.
Okay, and the governor's deed does not require any kind of public notification prior, anything that's going to take place?
It has requirements in it, primarily that we notify ODNR and we get their consent before we move forward with the transaction.
Okay, public is not a part of that. It's just ODNR.
In this meeting, I mean, notice of a meeting or an item being on an agenda such as this is the only requirement.
Okay.
Is there, can you imagine, or do you have any, like, I guess, qualms or issues with this transfer?
No, I was just curious because there was a transfer of property not too long ago that sold for like the property. It was like $1,800 or something like that. And that, I mean, anybody would have loved to have a chance to have that, even though, the person lived right beside it, wanted to expand or what have you. But I was just looking at, no, I don't have a problem with this one. But section 121.22 is talking about like public meetings and exceptions, where it's basically talking about the purchase, if any, let me see here. The purchase or sale of a public property is void if the seller buyer of the public property has received covert information from a member or public body that has not been disclosed to the general public in sufficient time for other prospective buyers, sellers to prepare and submit offers. this is different, it sounds like, because it's government. I don't
That
have a
sounds like
problem.
mineral rights, where like if we
It does.
gave.
Well, it does, and, the other one kind of seemed like maybe it didn't follow that. But, I mean, that was,
I don't
I think
think
you guys
that there's
answered
any oil deposits under that land, though. I get your, I'm very skeptical
mineral
too,
rights.
when we've got something popping up that's, oh, we're just giving away land to somebody. But I think that's why the process is that each time this comes up, it comes up as a resolution that we have to handle individually, so we can kind of look at its individual merits per the property. I don't know if you've got a copy of the map of this property, but.
I do, and I don't
Yeah.
have a problem. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If there's stuff in there, I mean, because at the beginning of this, it's number 2 of that section that I told you about, but it's to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, the sale of property at competitive bidding, or the sale or other disposition of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for use property in accordance to the section 50510 of the revised codes. If premature disclosure of information could give an unfair competitive bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public, no member of a public body shall use division of this section as a subterfuge for providing covert information. It says nothing about mineral rights or anything. This is about property. So I was just bringing it up. It is, I don't have a problem. This was in there, so.
Who's the ultimate beneficiary of this? Like, who is
That's all I have.
receiving the land? Is it a individual, a corporation, a entity?
It's the ownership interest of the adjacent property, which is, I don't know if it's in his name, but it's Larry Hamilton,
Okay.
The proprietor or owner of the Randolph Freedom Struggles Museum. I would, if it pleases the commission, just point out too, for Mrs. Heisler's benefit, in section 3436 of our code is where it addresses the transfer of city-owned property and how that is to be handled, and property in that case being real estate, as opposed to the other section. I don't know if it's speaking to real estate or belongings.
Okay, again, I didn't have a problem.
Thank you,
I just wanted
Kim.
to bring it up because
Hearing no other comment, I would move the adoption of resolution number R-106-24.
I'll second that. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would lose my mind if I had, there you go. I like that. Next on our agenda is Resolution R-107-24.
A resolution to levy assessments to pay for the cost of nuisance abatements.
Mayor and Commissioners, this resolution certifies the nuisance abatement special assessments to the county auditor and allows the county auditor to assess the charges on the property's owner's taxes.
Any questions?
Yeah, the only thing missing from here is the addresses of those parcels. On some occasions, we've seen addresses as well as parcel numbers, and I would note that most of them are for grass, and one for maintenance and several others for trash, but majority are for grass.
Correct. Yeah, and I just went with, it looked like last year we had that without the addresses, so I went with that. I mean, if the commission would want me to put that in there in the future, I could.
I don't know that we need to do that.
Just curious.
I have a few questions. They're not in any particular order. So, will the owners of these be taken to collections if these nuisance fees are unpaid? And I guess what's the timetable for paying them once they're issued?
Even before they're assessed?
Yeah. Well, I guess after. So I guess what's the process? So you're gonna, like, if we picked out one of these properties like grass that was too high, I guess, and we cut it. So we're gonna issue them a fine, and then they'll have a certain amount of time to pay it, right?
Right.
What's the time on that?
I will have to find that out.
Frank, do you know?
What happens when these get assessed is they go on their real estate property tax, and it's a permanent assessment on their taxes.
Oh, so it just gets kind of pulled out of their bank account,
Well,
probably their escrow?
the county just charges them that on their tax bill. So it doesn't disappear for them, and if they sell the house before they pay their taxes, it'll be a lien on their property. So it's a lien, it's actually a first lien on their property, and it's a good lien.
Okay.
And the city will, in most cases, collect occasionally. If there's a bankruptcy or something of that nature, it's possible the city might not, but in the vast majority of it, the city eventually will get this money.
So you don't necessarily have to worry about collections if it's a tax lien on your house, then. Okay, so that answers the next question. I was gonna ask, in the cases of rentals, are these fines being levied against the tenant or the owner? But it'd obviously be the owner if it's against the taxes. Is there an appeal process for owners?
I don't know that.
Yes, on any
Okay,
assessment,
there is.
anytime there's a violation, they have the right to appeal it. They don't in most cases, and the city goes out and cut the grass. Chris may have a better idea on that, but, and
He looks excited to answer.
So when the violation's identified, the property owner is noticed, and they have the opportunity to remedy the issue themselves. And then if it doesn't happen, the code enforcer officer will go about engaging a contractor to remedy the circumstances. At the end of the process, when we receive the bill is then issued, or the property owner is billed for that amount that is due. And then they have a period of time to be able to make whole on that payment. And if they don't, once a year, in September, we send all the eligible items to be assessed to properties to the auditor's office so that they can complete that assessment process. Everything that goes on your tax roll is, you can take it to the Board of Revisions if you want to contest it there, but up to that point, it's what I just described.
I'm guessing the kind of the life cycle on these is pretty drawn out. I'm assuming that you're not jumping over to my house if I didn't mow for 3 weeks and then just mowing it for me and sending me a bill. These are usually probably pretty long-term, persistent problems, right?
These are the ones where folks simply are not responsive to what they're being asked to do.
Okay. I guess, so is it regular that these are just bulk voted on by the commission in September once a year?
It's an annual occurrence. It's at the end of August, beginning of September every year. I think it's due to the auditor by September 10th, I think, Jerry, or something. The Monday after Labor Day. That's how, so I did it for a couple years. Now Jerry's doing it before me. Amy did it. So this is a routine item that occurs every year.
And then the proceeds from these fees, where do those end up? Just in the general fund, or do they have a particular fund that they end up going to, or a particular purpose?
Yeah, they're collected back into the general fund and then appropriated accordingly. I would assume the nuisance abatement fund.
And the bottom line is that if citizens were taking care of their properties, we wouldn't be asking the city to come up with almost $31,000 to mow basically grass and some other kind of concerns.
This is true, and sadly, that's a pretty typical number for any given year, depending on what the growing activity is like with the grass that year.
I better get to mowing then.
So, Mr. Schmeezing, I just went through here and on the grass one, first glance here, it appears, while we have 3 sheets, there are only 42 different different parcels that are listed. Some of these are duplicate, is the point I'm getting at.
Correct.
Properties. We have duplicate properties. How many of these are duplicate owners?
I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head, but I suspect there could be a few in there.
We'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Jeff Grimes.
Jeff Grimes, 1512 Margine Drive. So can I ask what the difference is between a nuisance abatement and a code violation?
Every property maintenance violation is a nuisance, according to the code. The abatement comes into play when it's creating a direct concern for public health and safety. So if it's tall grass and the potential to harbor rodents, or if it's trash and debris strewn across the lot, or some sort of condition with the property that warrants the need for there to be immediate action.
So why weren't these property violators taken to court over their code violations?
For grass, tall grass, obviously that doesn't work very well when you're talking about the length of the process to take someone to court. The way the code is written, there's a provision in there that stipulates the maximum height the grass can be. Once it exceeds that height, the property owner is noticed. There's also an annual mechanism that notices the community in general, which then states that if it exceeds that amount and you're noticed, the city can abate the condition summarily. So that's what happens.
And then you said there was trash and other things that went along with that. It just concerns me that on a property that I owned, I was giving a lot of code violations, and then one of them, the stipulation was that they would take me to court again if I didn't cut the grass.
I have no knowledge.
Just trying to trying to figure out what you guys are up to. And are any of these properties that we have nuisance abatements owned by the city?
No.
$31,000, so that's a lot of money to find people. So maybe we could do better in our town and possibly get some type of organization together that we could help these people out. I know everybody wants their town to look good, keeping the property values up, but, if they're not going to do it, could we figure out, is somebody injured? Are they had health problems? Are they disabled? So just trying to save the taxpayers' money and make our town look better. Maybe we could help these people out without fining them, and just try to help our citizens out if possible. Thank you.
I would just add that when the code official identifies the circumstances and notices the property owner, if they engage and indicate that there's a health issue or they're elderly or any of those kind of things, that they're simply not able to do it on their own, they give them the resource information that we have available, Neighbors Helping Neighbors and folks like that, so that they can go to those folks to seek assistance so that they don't run into this situation.
I would, restate the point that was made earlier, that a lot of these properties are duplicate properties. There's potentially duplicate ownership. And so that would lead me to believe that the vast, vast majority of the community is able to take care of their property, to mow their grass, to keep trash out of their lawn. And that those who are willing to take that effort to take pride in their property have probably a preference, voiced or not, that their neighbors take care of their property as well.
And the other issue, I think, is that some of the properties are so bad that it takes special equipment to be able to get the mowing or whatever accomplished. And a lot of neighbors just don't have that kind of equipment. It's heavy-duty, lawn maintenance kinds of equipment, and most of us don't own that kind of equipment.
All right, our final public speaker declined, so any other comments from commissioners? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution R-107-24.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is resolution number R-108-24.
A resolution to execute an economic development revolving loan agreement with Asbury Jerky LLC.
Commissioners, this and the next two items come from an action that the City Commission took in March of 2022 to establish an economic development revolving loan fund. Prior to that, we had a small sum of money for an economic development RLF, but it was tied to the funding sources, IA, CDBG, and/or USDA sources, and had a lot of restrictions that made it really difficult to deploy, and quite honestly, were relatively small amounts. With the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund that the commission put into place, with the idea of spurring economic development activities and providing assistance for new and expanding businesses and properties, business property owners in our community, we have the opportunity to do much more work. This item comes from Robert Asbury and his partner in his business, Jacqueline, his wife, I believe, and they refer to their business as Asbury Jerky. It's an LLC. They've been operating for about a year, really figuring out their product offering and where they're going with things, developing their business plan and getting a good handle on what they need to do. They've had success already in identifying sales opportunities. They've got a potential vendor who is ready to receive a substantial portion of their product once they're capable of producing in the quantities necessary. So their ask of the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund is $60,000 in assistance, would be in the form of a commercial loan, and that would help support some of their remaining startup costs, but primarily the purchase of mobile kitchen equipment, smokers, and some inventory. The terms would be comparable to what we've done on a previous loan, where there's a deferred payment period for 5 months. It'd be a 60-year term with interest rates that are prime less 2%, and collateral that would include the equipment that's being purchased, and it would be equal to or exceed the amount of the loan amount. The process works by way of an individual who's interested in the program, providing the prerequisite submittals that are identified in the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund policy document, which is posted on our website. Once they submit that information to the development department, we review it to make sure that everything that is required is there. In effect, vet the applicant to make sure that it meets the program criteria. And then that individual is invited to present to the Economic Development Incentive Committee, which was formed as part of this program, which includes a city commissioner, city manager, finance director, economic development director, Piqua Chamber of Commerce president, Main Street executive director, Piqua Improvement Corporation chair or vice chair, the superintendent of Piqua City Schools, and the superintendent of Upper Valley Career Center, and 2 at-large members that the committee appoints. And when they present to the committee then ask the additional questions necessary to discern whether or not they think this is an appropriate request and a loan for them to support. They deliberate on that matter after the presentation, ask any additional follow-up questions, and then once they're satisfied, they make a recommendation. In this particular case, the committee recommended unanimously that the loan be approved. Anything more than $10,000 requires that we bring it to the City Commission for formal approval before we can go forward with issuance of the loan and executing the proper documents. Happy to answer any questions you may have specific to this request.
How many different kinds of jerky are there?
I think there were 6. Frank, you were there, was it 6?
I believe that there were multiple, and I can attest that it is
You sample-
I like
it's a
the
high
idea.
quality
Is
product.
there a reason why I didn't get
like the
invited to
idea.
this meeting?
I like the idea.
Did they already have a ribbon cutting, or are they still looking for ribbon cutting?
No, he's a mobile operation, so he
that.
would ultimately maybe evolve to bricks and mortar, but for now, he
He's
likes
actually
the
here.
idea.
He's
Oh, I'm
here.
sorry, Robert's sitting right there.
He can come up, yeah.
Yeah, I'll let him speak to that.
Good evening, gentlemen. Sorry, I didn't fill out the public speaking, close like that, but I'm Robert
No,
Asbury.
you're
Address is 1511 Andover Avenue. So I am actually one of the co-owners of Asbury Jerky LLC, as Chris Meeting and Frank have, seen firsthand. So we launched our business, like I said, almost a year ago, and since we launched the business, it just exploded. And basically what we're trying to do is we vacuum, marinate, and we smoke jerky to sell it. And since it's launched, it's like I said, it just blew up. Right now, we do run about 12 different flavors of jerky. Some of those do offer zero sugar, so people that are diabetic, stuff like that. But we do sweeten our jerky with agave. So agave is actually more of a natural sweetener rather than sugar. And then part of the reason for the request for the loan was we had a national gas station chain reach out to us and ask us to go in 50 of their Ohio stores. And if the 50 Ohio stores took off, then they wanted to go in 480 nationwide coast-to-coast stores. So those people in attendance that are very familiar with Circle K,
Sure.
Circle K is who would like our product to be in their store.
Man, interesting. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing, and you get this set up. Will you be at the Piqua Center with your mobile operation sometime?
Yes, our goal is to be at the Piqua Center, the Farmers Market, somewhere close to Lock 9 when they do Lock 9, because it will be a mobile kitchen. Because where can you go and smell, see, taste,
That's true.
and purchase jerky?
That'd be awesome. It's a great idea.
All right, sign me up.
Any other comments from commissioners?
No, I heard the pitch, so.
All right.
Jeff Grimes, no comment. Kim, no comment. I'll take all 12. No, I mean, I'll take, I'll take comments from, or I'll take a
Motion to adopt taste test, no, motion to adopt resolution R-108-24.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next is resolution number R-109-24.
A resolution to execute an economic development revolving loan agreement with Chocolate Nation LLC.
This, once again, is a request of the EDRLF. This particular request comes from Chocolate Nation LLC, which is a combination of Winans Chocolates and Coffees and Small Nation, two separate business partners, melded their name, and that's where the Chocolate Nation name comes from. Wilson Reiser at Winans was the presenter for this request, and his partner on this is Jason Duff of Small Nation. The two of them are also working together on the renovation of the building at 113, 115 East High Street, which is soon to be a co-working space with a small food hall component in the rear, with the next applicant, Smoothie Life, as one of the tenants, and then a sushi bar next to that. The request here is for $200,000 in funding that will help to complete enhancements to the facade, and exterior building improvements at the entryway, finish out the food hall space, and equip the food service tenant stalls so that they can be utilized. When I say equip, there's 2 more stalls around the corner of the building in addition to the 2 that I just mentioned. So they want to finish building out that area to be able to continue to grow this space. The terms will be 84 months, a 7-year note, and the interest would start on month 1. And it'd be principal plus interest for that 7-year period with a balloon payment due at the end of the 7 years to pay the balance in full. So the funds could be returned to the EDRLF and we could loan it out to someone else. Interest rate, once again, is prime less 2%. And we'll determine that at closing right now. The prime's at 8.5, so put us at 6.5. And they are anxious to get going on this project. As you may have saw, they've had a news release out. The acquisition of the property is complete, and the 2 tenants are eager to get in there, and it's a pretty exciting project for our community.
I'll say with this one, along with the previous request and the next request, this revolving loan fund, I think is great. I think this is a good way for us to help start new businesses in Piqua, help allow those ones that have already started here to kind of expand and continue growing. That brings obviously more economic development for the city, and I think this is just a great way of trying to keep the economy going here and bootstrap some of the good things that we want to see going on downtown and the rest of the city, and making sure we're keeping jobs going around and all of that.
I appreciate those comments, Commissioner, and would tell you that it's something we've sorely lacked for a long time, so we're very appreciative that the commission has deem fit to put this fund in place.
Any other comments from commissioners? Jeff Grimes? Him? I'll accept the motion then.
Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution R-109-24.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And final resolution, or final item is resolution number R-110-24.
A resolution to execute an economic development revolving loan agreement with Meal Prep Life LLC.
Thank you. This is the third and final request of the evening. Meal Prep Life LLC also does business as Smoothie Life. This is Julie Cassiano. She currently operates a location in Sydney, which came into existence when she realized her and her family were running to Tropical Smoothie in Troy quite a bit, and they said, why can't we have this in our community? So they started there. They've got a full kitchen in the back of their space that they occupy next to Buffalo Wings and Rings, and have had a great deal of success, developed a lot of customer base in Piqua, and had a lot of requests to be here. They engaged with the former property owner of the location in which they're going to be, and they saw the opportunity, and so now they're moving forward. They're super excited. When you have the opportunity to meet Julie, if you have not already, you'll find her to be very engaging, enthusiastic, and a great entrepreneur. And so her ask is $45,000, again, a commercial loan. And this would be for the purchase of kitchen equipment. It takes some pretty expensive devices to blend up those smoothies. What they do is a little different than what you would find elsewhere, or Tropical Smoothie. This is more of a protein-based, health-oriented smoothie. But I can tell you from the two that I tried, they're very flavorful. They also do meal prep. So they have salads and chicken wraps and other meal items that they prep each day, and they bring from their kitchen in Sydney, and it'll be in a refrigerated case, or you may have ordered in advance, and you'll just be coming to pick it up. And she too is very eager to get going. She's got her contractor in there doing some build out. She's got the equipment on order, and yeah, Julie is a ball of energy. So I think it'll be a great addition to our downtown, another food offering that gives us some variety when it comes to lunch options, or even for the meal prep option. I think it's going to be something that'll be very well received, and if the response from the educators in the community is any indication, she's going to do well, because my wife works at Piqua City Schools, and they're clamoring for the opening day.
Comments from commissioners? Jeff Grimes?
Just say again, it's great to see how excited people are to build and grow in the community, and it's great that we can be a part of helping them do that.
Yeah, I know Smoothie Life from Sydney. Kids go to Lehman, so they are a contributor to the basketball. They do, they help out and help the basketball team out, and so I've met her several times. Product is number one. It's a good product, so I would agree. Kim, do you? Okay. I would take a motion then.
Mayor, I'll move that we adopt Resolution R-110-24.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. That looks like it concludes our business. Commissioner comments, though. We'll start with Commissioner DeBras.
I will try to keep this as short as possible, please. Mr. Smeezing, don't leave. I did not comment on any of the last three resolutions because I'm going to save them for this. Mr. Smeezing gets a firsthand view of every time we're in a meeting regarding economic development, and Jerry's also heard this as well, about my desire to increase our economic development revolving loan fund. These three things of what we just approved tonight, this is economic development done right. These are the type of investments and things where the city or municipality actually plays a role in the economic development process. Two of these three are in the core, in the heart of our downtown. The other one is mobile. He can be anywhere he wants to be. But these are investments, small investments, in the grand scheme of things, with friendly interest rates, to help folks kind of bridge that gap who are right there. And my point in all this is to thank Chris for sticking with this, getting this set up. And as long as I'm here, we will keep doing this, and hopefully it'll get us an influx of cash to do more of these. So thank you on that. And then in closing, I got the early report back from my youngest that the first day of school this year at the junior high went without a hitch. So
Good.
hope all the kids had a good and painless day back. And now both of our schools in town, Piqua Catholic and the city of Piqua, are back in full force. So keep an eye out for those yellow buses out there and the kids as they're going to and from school. And with
Exactly.
that, I will yield back.
Commissioner Vetter.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments. I want to thank Amy from coming to the Southview neighborhood meeting. If you're not aware of it, there is concern for the Moat Park building, and I think we're kind of taking a step backwards a little bit and asking some good questions about what a good use of that building can be. And Amy was kind enough to come to the Southview neighborhood meeting and fill us in a little bit on it. We're taking little steps on that, but if you have concerns for the Moat Park building and possible uses for it, this is a good time to be offering your suggestions for that. Want to remind citizens that we have a town hall meeting scheduled for the 12th, I believe, and it'll probably be down at the gazebo.
Yes.
As far as I know.
Kevin Craney.
Yeah. And so that'll be coming up. The next meeting of the Hance Pavilion Committee has not yet been set, but I think they're interested in maybe touring the facility and seeing what it really looks like. Not too many people have been in that building for several years, and I think there's interest in seeing what it looks like and what the kind of shape it's in at this point in time. So will be announced on the Facebook page. The Hance Pavilion Committee has a Facebook page, and you can see all those things on there. The last thing I want to do is say thank you to the electric system. I've been fortunate enough to attend a number of electric system meetings. Number one, there was a survey done that really covered all of the city utilities, and the electric system comes up very high in the numbers in terms of approval, all kinds of activities, and I think we have a lot to be proud of in that system. Secondly, they have received 2 awards. The first one is for reliability, and it's called the Diamond Level Designation as a Reliable Public Power Provider. And we are one of a few utilities in the state of Ohio who have received that award, a high award for reliability, and I'm very thankful for that. The other award, which I was equally surprised by and impressed by, was that we won $50,000 for 120 hours of technical assistance training that really deals with what I would call advanced cybersecurity technology. And again, you want your electric system not to be vulnerable to cybersecurity concerns, and I think the Electric Utility Board was very happy to hear that news, and that's another example of part of the city that's functioning very well. With that, I will yield.
All right. Commissioner Holman.
I have no comments tonight.
You see the shock. Sorry. I would like to just thank all the people who came out tonight and who are viewing online to this new format change, and bear with us as we are changing with it. I would like to I hope that everybody had a good Labor Day weekend. It was nice to get some time off from working on my jobs and get to spend some time with family yesterday, which was nice. And Piqua City Schools are back in session, all of them. And so watch those buses out there, look out for kids, slow down in the afternoons and in the mornings. Of course, drive the speed limit anyways. And with that said, I will entertain a motion.
Can you mention the board openings?
The what? Oh, yes, you gave me that. I have it right here. There are 3 board openings.
Oh, yes.
The Park Board has had an opening, the Charter Review Board has had an opening, and the BZA has had an opening. If anybody would like to be, or is interested and would like to be on any of those boards, please apply. And we always like our volunteers and we appreciate you, so please apply and help us out. And as they say, action speaks louder than words, so please help us. And with that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn from this, but we'll be back for public comment, which will be videotaped, which will be recorded.
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those, moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned from the business section. 5-minute break. And just for the record, Millie Sheets and one other person, Jeff Grimes, are no longer here. But I need to read the rules of conduct real quick, just so they're on the record. Recognizing that the city has a compelling and significant interest in conducting its meetings in an efficient manner, following rules of conduct shall be enforced during the commission business meeting and the non-agenda public comment session. Obscene comments, physically threatening remarks, and disruptive conduct are prohibited. Profanity that is disruptive is prohibited. Racist and hate-filled epithets are prohibited. Loud and boisterous conduct or comments are prohibited. Cheering, jeering, or clapping unless for ceremonial purposes as determined by the mayor are prohibited. Signs and noisemakers are prohibited. All persons shall remain seated during commission meetings unless they are leaving the commission chambers or addressing the commission from the podium. Any person desiring to make a public comment shall complete a public comment request card provided by the clerk of commission and shall deposit the card in the public comment request box. The box will be monitored through the public comment session, and cards will be given to the mayor or presiding officer by the commission's designee during public comment sessions. The mayor shall call the person requesting to make public comment during the appropriate public comment periods. When called by the mayor to address the commission, the individual called shall address the commission from the commission podium unless the person so called has a medical condition that prevents the individual from doing so. In such case, the mayor will make every attempt to accommodate the individual so his or her comments are heard by public. If during the non-agenda public comment session, the public comment cards have not all been called prior to the end of the meeting, the individuals not called will be placed at the top of the list for presenting comments at the next scheduled meeting. If during a non-agenda public comment session, the public comment cards have been exhausted and the meeting has not been concluded, individuals who have not spoken may request to do so until the conclusion of the meeting. Any individual violating a commission rule shall be warned by the mayor or presiding officer of the violation, and if such individual does not cease the activity so warned, he or she shall be asked to leave the city hall. If an individual refuses to comply with the mayor or presiding officer directed to leave City Hall, the individual may be charged criminally for his or her conduct. And as such, we are in non-agenda public comment, and Kim Heisler, you are up.
Kim Heisler, 1802 West Parkway. I think I just have a couple statements and then questions, and then you guys can follow up. The burn committee, it was disappointing to hear what they had to say earlier. And it was interesting that you guys mentioned that you wanted them to finish the timeline and have it finished, but still didn't have everything they needed to actually complete it. So I don't know how they can finish if they don't have the support. And thanks for trying to push along, getting them a lawyer and making that expediency, because that's very important. And it does seem like they have to fight for their independence to do the job right. The other thing, commission rules. I know this is the first time we've actually used the cards. And during like each of the ordinances, I didn't realize that was going to be like for each of the ordinances, resolutions or whatever.
It was stated, and it was in writing.
Yes, but until you do it, I didn't really realize it. And is it also, if someone doesn't write it down that they want to talk, can you allow?
Yeah, we did. We did that tonight.
I know you did it tonight, but it's not.
And we did it, we'll do it continually.
Okay, as long as you recognize people that didn't sign the cards that still had
Yes,
questions.
That's written into the rules.
It's written- I
made sure
just read that.
was-
I
yeah.
actually just read that.
I like fought very hard to make sure that was
Yeah.
written into the rules.
I actually just
Okay.
read it.
Well, but I thought it happened earlier where someone,
No, everybody that wanted to talk, whether they wrote it
Right.
down or not,
My
got to
bad.
talk.
The revolving loans thing is a great idea. Thanks for, you guys
That's
being on
been
board with that.
instituted for some time now,
I
but
believe it was the COVID relief money that originally
that seeded
propagated
it.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, that's great, and, it's the first time I remember it anyways. And is there any stipulations on that, on the revolving loans and what your
There are,
percentage?
but you'd have to go to the site, the economic development site to find out what the requirements are. I'm not the economic development person, so I can't tell you that. He's not here.
Well, let me finish my question. I understand, I
Oh.
can go there. If there was any stipulations on the revolving loan that had like a percentage that had to be like Piqua residents or anything like that, or, I
That
mean,
I
I know
don't
we're
know.
trying to get business, but it really, I mean, it's great to have, these all have a connection to Piqua, the ones we're adding, but that would also be nice. And then the other thing is, I'm curious, when Jeff was up here earlier, he was talking about getting the mowing the grass violation and how he was threatened with court if he didn't do that versus those folks that are actually written down and having that.
That one, I think you should talk to Mr. Grimes about. I don't know if that'd be appropriate for us to comment on any perceived legal issues that he may have.
Okay. All right, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to get up and speak? Without a card? Nothing?
I
Darren?
demand that Adam come up and give a comment.
What?
He refuses.
Darren? Anything? Just say your name and your address again. I appreciate it.
Darren Yeek, 604 West Green Street. As far as the trash and grass and stuff, you were asking if there was one like particular person
Yeah.
that has a lot of these. There isn't. I went through and was looking them up.
Did you look them up?
Yeah,
Good,
I got most
good.
of them looked up. However,
Are they all different?
yeah, and I would say most of these are.
We used to get
people-
addresses and
People that
names.
have died, and
Ah.
probably in an estate, and nobody's taking care of the property and stuff, because I've looked into a couple of the properties, and it's just.
So it goes
tied up
on-
Trying to figure out how to settle the estate.
Sure.
And stuff on that. But
Thank you.
then, there is a couple properties that are actually torn down and have been advertised by the Piqua Improvement Corporation that are being cited for the grass.
Well, presumably they would, whoever's the current owner would be liable for
Responsible.
the tax lien.
Well, it's the Piqua Improvement Corporation, but the city mows a lot of the Piqua Improvement Corporation properties anyways.
When PIC owns it, they do.
Yeah. And because they were actually advertised, a couple of these properties were actually advertised to be developed.
We'll look into that and find out
I
what
was
the
gonna say, I
deal
don't
is
know
with
if it's
that.
just, because it shows on the county website, still shows the property building there and stuff, but they're actually been torn down. And those actual properties, I've seen them on their website advertising, trying to get somebody, if they're interested in developing it, it's available and stuff, so I don't know.
PIC may be advertising it, they might not be holding it,
Yeah.
though.
They may not be holding it.
Yeah,
yet.
that website needs updated
Okay.
quite a bit, so several of our websites do, just to let you
Yeah,
know.
but most of the properties and stuff are really just,
That's good to know.
I mean, there's a handful of rental properties.
So I was gonna go
And
home.
there is 3 of them by the same,
Okay,
same.
I was gonna go home and run all of those through
Yeah.
the computer. I'm glad you did that.
But yeah,
So-
I was gonna say, it's not too bad. I mean, as far as, most of the ones owned by the same company wasn't for grass, it was for trash. and
That's
stuff
good to know, too.
On the properties and stuff, so.
Thank you, appreciate you. You
All
have
right,
that.
motion to adjourn.
Yes, second.
Adam Cease, 1853 West Parkway, down the street from Tim,
Yeah.
since it was demanded that I come up here.
He's the only one that did that.
I haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. I just wanted to say, I'm out and about in the community, not just our community, but Troy, and I can tell you the people of Troy are getting a little frustrated. Piqua's kind of creeping up on them. We got some things that they don't have. They got to drive down here now instead of us driving down there.
People are coming this way, you're right.
I know they were trying to do a project to outdo us, and they're failing miserably. So it's good to see the roles have reversed. I'm excited to try some of that beef jerky.
Me too.
And I'm glad that Tom offered to pay for Crooked Handle after this. So on that,
I'm there.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'm there. Thank you.
That was extortion.
It was. You asked him to come up. Anybody else?
I move for adjournment.
I'll entertain that
Second.
motion. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.